anything, we have a rabbinical court. So please talk to us after the service. But it's really great pleasure to welcome all of you here for this very, very special Kabbalat Shabbat service. Those of you who do not know me, I'm Rabbi Margolis, and I joined this beautiful congregation just a little bit over the month ago. And Marilyn, would you please come here to welcome everyone and our guests, and then we will continue with our liturgy.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Not well? How about now? Okay. I have to remember what it was like screaming at my kids. Anyway, I just wanted to welcome all of our members, all of our local visitors. It's so wonderful to see so many people here that I've been able to say hello to because I know them, because they live here and they're part of our community, and for our visitors from off island. Tonight is a very, very special night. Tonight is a night of history. I was going to bring a long speech, but I decided I better not, because then I'll have to suffer for that after by people telling me I shouldn't have. So what I'm going to say is that I am so looking forward to the visit of Rabbi Dennis and Sandy Sasso and son David. The name Sasso is like ingrained in my blood, so to speak. It is a part of the history of this synagogue. And our immediate past president, Dorothy Isaacs, was the one that, when she found out that the Sassos would be coming here to do something else, got them to be able to do a program here so that we could learn and see a little bit more about our history and about where we came from. Dorothy is like fourth generation or third generation or something. Eighth generation. And I mean, I've been here, a member of this congregation with my family for like maybe 48 years, and I think I'm really something. But we're talking about 8 generations. So welcome, everybody. I'm very thrilled to worship with you and also to experience what we are going to experience tonight at this very special service. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. We have a prayer books. If you would like to take a copy, we have few available still. And before we're going to start with our Adlakat Nerot, the lighting of our candles, I'm really excited because I heard some rehearsals going on for the last few days, and especially yesterday. And I would like to ask David and Gilchrist to begin with Baruch Haba.
Great. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And
Everybody
it's great to
hear me
have
okay?
you.
Thank you, Rabbi. We're going to start with a song called Baruch Haba, which is a traditional Sephardic memory and a melody. And it is a prayer that is often sung in the morning liturgy for holidays, but it is also used for welcome at weddings, and so it's a wonderful song to welcome us all tonight. Baruch Haba means welcome to all who come. Baruch Haba b'shem Adonai, berachnuchem mi-beit Adonai, el Adonai vaya'er lanu, Yisru chag ba'avotim. Yisru chag ba'avotim. Hakarnot hamitzbeach. Eliata ve'elohecha. Elohai aromemecha. Eliata ve'elohecha. Elohai. Baruch Adonai ki tov, ki lengolam chasdo. Odu l'Adonai ki tov, ki lengolam chasdo.
Beautiful. Welcome, everyone. May the door of the synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to burden, thanks to express, and hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be for all who enter the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. On page 121, we are going to light candles for our Shabbat, and tonight I asked Dorothy and Rabbi Sandy to lead us, and also there are additional candles. If someone else in the congregation would like to come and join us and light the candles, then please do so. Asher Amen. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. And as the brightness of these beautiful candles remind us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our lives, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner sheshabbat.
And we go straight to very, very special melody that I know David wrote on special occasions. And tonight is a very comfortable night for Rabbi to conduct the service. I don't have to do too much talking. Because I have friends that share the service with me, but also because we really want to soak ourselves and to be present in the beautiful melodies that we're going to listen. So please, if you could just tell us a few words.
So as you've figured out, those are my parents, the two rabbis right there. And I can say that this next song that I'm going to sing is, well, we're going to sing a lot of old Sephardic Jewish songs tonight. This is probably the newest Sephardic song because I am half Sephardic and I wrote it. So, and I wrote it in honor of my parents, for my parents, and in honor of my father's retirement. He didn't know that I'm going to be singing this tonight, but we're going to be performing this and a number of other Friday night melodies at his retirement in a few months, and we thought we'd pull it out tonight. So this is Shalom Aleichem, and I think you'll pick up the melody. We'll do the verses that if you have come to services before, you may be familiar with, and please sing along once you get it. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. יאי די 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 די, 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 יאי די 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 די.
Absolutely stunning. Thank you. Please do not sit as we continue on page 138, and we imagine that we are in Tzfat, 16th century, and we are going to welcome Shabbat. Lecha Dodi.
This is a Lecha Dodi that is an old Sephardic melody that I learned from a recording of Abraham Lopez Cardozo. This is a Lecha Dodi that is often used for holidays, and we have Passover coming up, so that is appropriate. And the notation in the book that recorded this song says that it is also used for the commemoration of the dedication of synagogues. And since we're here to celebrate the history of the synagogue, this felt like a good Lecha Dodi to sing. So please join. We'll do also the verses that you probably typically do, but when we come back to the refrain of Lecha Dodi, please sing along.
We're on page 138.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala Shabbat mekabela Shamor vezahor bedibur echad Ishmiyanu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad לשם ולתפארת ולתחילה Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה בשבת נקרלה
Shabbat Shalom. And while you may be seated, you can continue to stand just for a few more seconds. Why wouldn't you just say hello to the person behind you, in front of you, near you, on left side and right side? There are many visitors. Just for a few seconds. Shabbat Shalom, and there will be enough time to continue with the beautiful blessings and greetings and being together after the service. And we are on page 144 with HCST Kaddish. Would you please rise? יתגדל והתקדש מרבה, ועל מה תברח יוטה וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון יומייכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בהגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יש מרבה מבורך, לעולם עולות מעל מיה. יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמד הקודשה בריחו. לילה מנקה ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בלמה ואמרו Amen. And we continue on page 146. Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. And praised be Adonai, to whom praise is due, now and forever. Please be seated as we witness beautiful time of this evening as it becomes dark and we think about blessings of Ma'ariv Aravim. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בדברו מעריב ערבים, בחוכמה פותח שערים, ובתבונה משנה עתים ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמורותיהם, ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים. Everlasting love you offer to people Israel, by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people, Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Israel.
Ahavat olam et Israel.
And on page 152, we are continuing with declaration of our faith with Shema, and there are different minhagim, different customs. We're going to talk about what are they, right? We are going to talk about them, Rabbi, at some point. But in some congregations, it's a minhag to rise for Shema. Some of us sit. Please do as your heart desires, and we are on page 152 with Shema. Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לארץ על ידיך, והיו לצדפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Please be seated. Standing on the partitures of history, we still believe what we were taught, and before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. And David mentioned that we are going to celebrate Passover just in 2 weeks. And we were always taught that there is a better place, a promised land. And the way to that promised land will be passing through the wilderness. But there is no way that to get from one place to another except by joining hands, marching together, and singing with lots of joy. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. And it's my pleasure to welcome one of our rabbis, Rabbi Dennis Sasso, to talk to us, to teach us, to give the first part of one of the sermons tonight. You see, you're always blessed with few rabbis and few sermons and lots of music. Thank you. Welcome. Let's try. We're not sure about the technology, if it's on our side tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
You tell me if you can hear me, and if you can't, I will make adjustments, locational or elocutional. Well, I must tell you that I stand before you on this Shabbat overwhelmed by a spirit of thankfulness and of humility. This hallowed pulpit was occupied generations ago by Rabbis David Cardoz and Moses Molito Sasso of blessed memories. They are my family ancestors who presided over services and life cycle events for my great and great-great-grandparents who lived in this island and who helped to build and to write the history of this distinguished congregation. So Sandy and I, along with our son David, whom you have already heard from, are honored to be with you. We are grateful to our dear colleague, your gifted new rabbi, Rabbi Julia Margolis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. To our dear cousins, Dorothy and Mark Isaacs, and to the board of the congregation and their president, Marilyn Blackhall, and to all of you for extending the invitation and making the necessary arrangements that have brought us to this visit. This is truly a homecoming. Special occasions are marked in the Jewish tradition by a blessing known as the Sheheheyanu. We thank God for giving us life, sustaining us, and bringing us to a special moment. So I begin with those words, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Sheheheyanu, V'kiimanu, V'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed is the eternal God who has granted us life, sustained us, and brought us to this sacred moment. Where to begin? Well, this sermon was much longer when I first started it, and after realizing that there would be more speakers and beautiful music, I had to trim it down. So, you know, when you have a lot to say and little time to say it, you feel like an Egyptian mummy, pressed for time. Who among you are tourists, visitors to the island tonight? You are seated in the honored east chair where the rabbi used to sit. So we might call on you to speak later. You know, for thousands of sun-loving tourists, the Caribbean islands are a popular vacation destination. You know that. For thousands of Jews who left Spain and Portugal escaping the Inquisition, these islands became homes of refuge and settings of opportunity. The people that came escaping oppression became pioneers of commerce, culture, and freedom in the New World. I share glimpses of this chronicle with you today, not as a tourist travelogue, but as a personal family narrative that links me with the Jewries of Panama and Costa Rica, of Curacao and St. Thomas. As you entered, you received some handouts. I am not going to take you through them, but you can take them home with you and perhaps recognize in them some of the things that I'm going to be speaking about. Jews had lived in Spain prior to the birth of Christianity. In time, they became an integral part of the Christian and Muslim kingdoms into which Spain was divided during the Middle Ages. Spanish Jewry's destiny was tragically sealed in 1492 by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, whose very marriage had been arranged by the good officers of Abraham Senior, a leading Jew of the court. They imposed the exclusivity of the cross. They decreed either conversion or the expulsion of Jews from Spain. Many Jews accepted conversion over exile, hoping eventually to return to their ancestral faith. They kept Jewish practices secretly. They were labeled new Christians or conversos, or derogatorily, marranos, a Spanish word that means swine. Some of those who chose exile went to the land of Israel, others to Holland, England, Italy, France. Some settled along the North African Mediterranean coast, and thousands went to the Ottoman Empire and Asia Minor, carrying Spain, its language, and its folklore in their hearts. And you have listened to some of those melodies. Others simply crossed over to Portugal. But 4 years later, under pressure from the Spanish crown, the King of Portugal also decreed that the Jews must convert or leave. No sooner had the Portuguese monarch realized the dire consequences of the Jews' departure, he prohibited their exodus and baptized them against their will. During the 16th century, thousands of conversos embarked to the Americas. Some estimate that 1/3 to 2/3 of the Iberian settlers in the New World were of Jewish origin. In the Americas, Judaism would flourish in lands ruled by the Dutch, the Danish, and the British. The history is rich and long. I will not go into detail A large number of conversos settled in Recife, Brazil, where they were allowed by the Dutch to practice Judaism openly. But then the Portuguese took over and they had to leave. Some went to New York in 1654. Others remained in the Caribbean under Dutch, British, and Danish rule. And that brings us to Curacao, the Netherlands Antilles, the mother congregation of Sephardics in the Caribbean. In 1651, 50 colonists arrived from Holland to establish a Jewish agricultural settlement known as Mikveh Israel, the hope of Israel. Holland recognized Jews as Dutch citizens with protected rights. And during the 18th century, mercantile trade was significantly in Jewish hands. The first rabbi of Mikveh Israel in Curacao, Rabbi Yoshua Pardo, was a classmate of the famous philosopher Baruch or Benedict Spinoza in Amsterdam. Today, the cemetery in Curacao is the oldest Jewish burial ground in the Americas since 1659. Curacao Jews helped to define the local culture and to shape the native language of Papiamento. Mikveh Israel Emmanuel, built in 1732, is the oldest congregation, oldest synagogue in continuous use in the Western Hemisphere. And this brings us to St. Thomas. I'm sure that many of you know the history better than I do, but I want to contextualize a few things that I'm going to say. Jews came to the island with the earliest settlers in 1665, but community life began in 1781, when Jews arrived from nearby St. Eustatius. Anybody been to St. Eustatius? I'd like to go there sometime. That island served as the great commercial free port of the West Indies. It was known as the Golden Rock, and it is said that a group of Sephardic Jews ran the show. Jewish merchants from St. Eustatius supplied arms to the American rebels. In January of 1781, the commander of the British West India Squadron, Admiral Sir George Rodney, attacked and set fire to the island, and he noted bitterly that the American Revolution would not have succeeded had it not been for the support of the Jews of St. Eustatius. From St. Eustatius, several families moved to St. Thomas. The first synagogue was built in 1796. This gorgeous building was erected in 1833, 2 years after a fire destroyed the previous building. Its floor, like the synagogue in Curacao and a few others in the Caribbean, is covered with sand, a practice of the early conversos intent on muffling the sounds of religious rituals from the scrutiny of the Inquisition. In 1917, the United States purchased the Virgin Islands from the Danish, and participating in the ceremonies was young Rabbi Moses Molito Sasso, a family relative with deep roots of over 250 years in the island, the step-grandfather of Dorothy McGuire Isaacs. As you know, this beautiful sanctuary is the oldest synagogue in continuous use under the American flag, the second in the Western Hemisphere after Curacao. Among the famous native sons of St. Thomas are Camille Pissarro, who made quite an impression on the island, and David Yulee, who was the first Jew elected to the U.S. Senate. Other St. Thomas natives include my ancestors, many of whom would move eventually to Central America. My grandmother, Leah Madeline Linney, daughter of Elias and Adela Atias Robles, was born in Costa Rica, but grew up in this island in the building right next door to this synagogue. And she would share fond memories with me about her years here. Linney married Abraham Coleman Sasso, also of St. Thomas ancestry. My father and I were born in Panama. My mother, Leita Pauli Sasso, was the granddaughter of Samuel Sasso and Leita Robles Rodriguez, also of St. Thomian ancestry. So I am a Sasso Robles on both sides of the family, which makes me my own cousin. How many people here have Sephardic ancestry or roots or identify as Sephardic? Raise your hands. Wonderful. So wonderful to have you here tonight. This is a homecoming. How many of you are Ashkenazim? We now make you honorary Sephardic. We have 3 rabbis here. That constitutes a Beit Din. Absolutely. We judge. It's done. But you have to join the synagogue and support it when you go back home. So let me say a word about Panama to close. Panama was a chief commercial outpost of the Spanish colonial empire. Jewish settlement grew after Panama declared its independence from Spain in 1821 and became part of Colombia. The California gold rush brought tens of thousands of adventurers through the isthmus. And in 1855, the first transcontinental railroad was built. Panamanian Jews organized a burial society in 1852 and founded Congregation Kol She'erit Israel in 1876. A sister congregation in Cologne was Kal Kadosh Yan Jacob, where I was born. Panama Jews include families who had moved to the isthmus from St. Thomas. In 1903, Panamanian Jewry figured prominently in the independence move from Colombia, helping to finance the revolutionary junta intent on the construction of the Interoceanic Canal, completed in Panama in 1914. How many of us were there at that time? That is the year that Rabbi Molito Sasso started his service of this congregation, when the canal was dedicated. Panama's early Sephardim arose to national prominence. Eric Del Valle, whose grandparents came from Curacao, was president of the Republic. His uncle, Max Del Valle, at whose funeral I was called to officiate, was vice president and served as president in 1965 during the absence of the elected incumbent, Marco Robles, who was also of Jewish ancestry. So Panama is the only country other than Israel that has had not one, but 2 Jewish presidents, heads of state. More significantly than that, however, is the fact that Panama has had 2 Jewish carnival queens. Presidents are elected by power and influence. The queens, the carnival queens, are elected from the heart of the people. One of them was Emmy Cardoz, the granddaughter of St. Thomas's beloved Rabbi, David Cardoz. Rabbi Cardoz's son, Moises Cardoz, was mayor of Panama City. That a Jewish beauty queen might be chosen to preside over a national festival, which is so intimately tied to the culture of the Catholic majority of the country, is worthy of note. Among Panama's prominent Spanish-Portuguese Jews are the founding conductor of the National Symphony Orchestra, Herbert de Castro, the author of the lyrics of the popular song Marcha Panama, Edward Maduro, the founding chief of the Panama Fire Department, David de Castro. Leaders in political life and in sugar industry and cattle, lumber, banking, airline industries include numerous families of Saint-Tomian origin: Fidanki, Maduro, Toledano, De Lima, Pereira, Sasso, Robles, De Castro, Enriquez. Today, Congregation Kol She'erit Israel is housed in a beautiful building in an upscale neighborhood of Panama City. The synagogue has grown with the arrival of immigrants from South America, an increasing number of converts who have married into the Jewish fold or returned to Judaism. There is much more to say, but I will bring it together with this thought. Caribbean Sephardim constitute a unique chapter of the history of the Jewish people. As Spanish speakers, they fit naturally into the Spanish-speaking society. In the West Indies, they became Anglophones, as English was the key to commerce and culture. These early Jews of the Americas were among the first Western, enlightened, emancipated, modern Jews. Reform Judaism became an easy fit for several of these progressive, culturally integrated communities. Social bridges built with the native population sometimes led to high rates of intermarriage. In Panama, the influx of Jews from the Middle East and Ashkenazi co-religionists infused new blood into the community. Today, it is estimated that there are about 20,000 Jews living in Panama. I'd like to leave you with thoughts spoken by my dear cousin, Woodrow de Castro of blessed memory, a prominent Panamanian of St. Thomian ancestry. In 1966, speaking at the 90th anniversary celebration of the founding of the synagogue in Panama, he said, and I quote, "What then does it mean to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation? Certainly, it does not mean to be a kingdom of monks and a cloistered people. Are the treasures accumulated throughout the millennia to be stored in the vaults of tradition, recounted but never spent? The hour has struck when those treasures should be minted into the coin of the realm, for to survive alone is not sufficient. Let those whose chief concern is preservation sojourn in the citadel of survival, but let those in the vanguard prevail with conviction that as our ancestors did, we all stand at the foot of Sinai, even at this crossroads of the world," which is the way that Panama is often referred to. And so, my dear friends, Rabbi Margolis, dear lay leaders, visitors, St. Thomian community, we stand also at Sinai, in this enchanted Caribbean paradise filled with a rich Jewish history, with interfaith relations, with civic and cultural life, and so much promise. As the first Panamanian to be ordained a rabbi, I cherish proudly the bonds that connect me with the families of this venerable congregation. And Sandy and I, along with our son David, are truly humbled and honored to worship with you in this holy space, which speaks of an ancient and proud heritage, and more importantly, of hopes yet to be realized. May we go from strength to strength in peace. Shabbat Shalom. I think that our singers, David and Gilchrist, are going to treat us now to a Sephardic song, Bendigamos, a prayer of thanksgiving. Bendigamos al Altísimo, let us give thanks to God Most High.
Bendigamos a el Altísimo, al Señor que nos crió. Démosle agradecimiento por los bienes que nos dio. Alabado sea su santo nombre, porque siempre nos apiadó. Odulado naikito, kileng olam chasto. Bendigamos a el Altísimo por el pan primeramente y después por los manjares que comimos juntamente. Bendita sea la casa esta, que nunca falta en ella fiesta. Tarde, mañana y fiesta a los hijos de Israel. Odulado naikitov, kileng olam chasdo. Odulado naikitov, kileng olam chasdo. Odulado naikitov, kileng olam chasdo. Odulado naikitov,
Thank you so much, Rabbi, and it was really inspirational sermon and so much history. And I think sometimes, especially for those like me who are not part of this island yet, but can learn about this special community, about being part of this synagogue, which I said many times, and I think I will continue until my last day on this earth, is that when you enter this space and your breath is just being taken for a moment. And this is what I felt, and this is what I will always feel. And thank you for sharing such inspiring history with us. And thank you for making me an honorary Sephardic Jew. As a very proud Ashkenazi Jew, I always told my parents that I'm sure there was something going on, some centuries ago, because I feel part of the Sephardic community. So now that you made it official, I'm really, really thankful for that. We are on page 160 with Hashkivenu, David and Gilchrist. We are people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time as we continue with Shamru on page 162. Bnei Israel et Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורתם לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם לעולם.
ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ.
שמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, Shabbat vayinafesh.
שמעו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורתם ברית עולם. את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורתם ברית עולם. תפילת עמידה, standing prayer on page 164. Would you please rise? Adonai, שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע מגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע. מחלחל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this peace. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. And we continue silently until page 180.
Shalom Rab,
Al Israel Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab, Al Israel Please be seated, and let's take a moment for our private prayers and meditations. יהיו לרצון נמרפי, וגם ליבי לפניך, אדוני, צורי וגואלי. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my Redeemer. Thoughts and prayers with our loved ones who are in need of complete healing, of refuah shlema. And if there are other names that you would like to mention, then please do so. Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any names? I know that we are on Zoom, and Facebook. I would like.
Tim McGaffick.
Thank you. Charles Lurie and Kathy Singer, and we are on page 371 with the prayer of Mishebeirach. Pleasure and honor to ask Rabbi Sandy Sasser to join us tonight and address us.
Well, thank you so much, Rabbi Margolis. It's such a delight to be here. Just so you know, when this first Panamanian rabbi to be ordained married this thoroughly Ashkenazi rabbi in 1970, we became the first practicing rabbinic couple in world Jewish history. So a lot of history here. I am going to speak very briefly because we are also celebrating another time in the calendar. March is designated as National Women's History Month, and I've been asked to help celebrate that very briefly. It is very significant for me that I can stand on this historic bima so close to my husband's family as a woman rabbi, next to your new spiritual leader, Rabbi Julia Margolis. This is something to celebrate and that I can hardly believe is happening. As I look back when I first started rabbinical school in 1969, I know that seems totally impossible, I realize how far we have come as a Jewish community in this regard. While studying at the seminary, I considered writing a dissertation on women and Judaism because there was just nothing on the subject. So I asked my advisor, what do you think about this? And my advisor discouraged me. He said, don't write about women, write about something important.
Uh-oh.
And that's not all. After my first year in seminary, I received a letter from a woman who had read about me actually it was in the New York Times, my only time in the New York Times. She wrote this: frankly, I just can't understand what would prompt a Jewish girl to have the chutzpah to consider herself eligible to become a rabbi. The very idea of a female rabbi makes me sick. And my first reaction was, she must be nuts. So I am hoping that you will do a very great deal of studying and find out that you are pursuing the wrong goal. And you just might end up on the right track. Ordinarily, I would sign off by wishing much success, but in this time, I will refrain. In fact, frankly, I hope you don't make it. For your sake, mine, and everyone else's. This was written in July of 1970. Well, Jewish women have done a great deal of studying and discovered they are pursuing the right goal and that what they are doing is important. I, an Ashkenazi rabbi of Eastern European ancestry, married to a pure Sephardic Spanish Portuguese rabbi, want to share with you a tale from Turkish Ladino tradition about the yearning for women's equality in Jewish tradition that has a very long history. It didn't just begin in the 1970s. So this is a Turkish tale. Once upon a time, women asked King Solomon why men were allowed more privileges than women. So Solomon wrote that question on a piece of parchment and tied it to the leg of a bird. And he said to the women, I am sending this bird as a messenger to God to bring back the answer. Unfortunately, the bird did not return. So the women are still waiting for the answer. That is why, whenever a bird lands on a windowsill or next to a house, women would say, Haberes buenos. Maybe this bird is bringing us good news. Good news. So there is so much good news to report about women and Judaism. So much has changed from when I started studying in rabbinical school. And your congregation, this historic place, has been the beneficiary of those changes as you welcome Rabbi Julia Margolis to this pulpit. Indeed, Haberes buenos, such very good news. So when once our prayers only mentioned the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as we said this evening, we now include Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. That was a battle. That was a battle. When once Noah's wife had no name and no story, we now know the name that the rabbis gave her, Naamah, which comes from the word ne'imin, because her deeds were pleasing. When once our satyrs spoke only of Moses and his staff, we now tell of Miriam and her tambourine. And soon you're going to be sitting down, many of you, at a Passover Seder. You will not only see a cup for Elijah, you will probably see a cup for Miriam, filled with water, meant to sustain us on our long journey to freedom. Where once there were no women rabbis, there are now close to 1,000. Where once the voices and stories of Jewish women were excluded, they are now part of the historical record. So I just want to share with you briefly some examples. The very first woman rabbi, Regina Jonas, was ordained in Berlin in 1935. In 1944, she was murdered in Auschwitz. It took 45 years before her story was fully told. 45 years. And it took a woman to find her papers after the fall of the Berlin Wall and to let her life speak once again. Rabbi Jonas taught, God has placed abilities and callings in our hearts without regard to gender. I'm a children's author, so I wrote a children's book called Regina Persisted, so that the next generation will know not to take these advances for granted. So most of us know the story of Doña Gracia Nasi, the powerful 16th century Sephardic woman who used her wealth to resettle Jews fleeing the Inquisition in Portugal and who supported Jewish scholarship and synagogues. But I came across a recent example of another Sephardic woman from Italy. Her name is Rita Levi Montalcini. And this story is so impressive, I just have to share it with you. She was born in 1909. Her father discouraged her from attending the university, saying, "That's really not for girls." Nevertheless, she convinced him to let her attend medical school. When Mussolini banned Jews from working in medicine, she set up a lab in her bedroom, and she used instruments that she made from sewing needles. She survived the Nazi invasion of Italy, and she went on to win a Nobel Prize in medicine in 1986. She died at 103. She wrote, above all, do not fear difficult moments. Think about the future. Do not fear anything. So this historic synagogue, too, has been strengthened by the efforts of strong women. Women who over the generations have helped to sustain Jewish life in this island. And what a personal pleasure it has been for me and for Dennis to meet one such civic and religious leader in this community, Dorothy Isaacs, and her husband, Mark. This has been just such a treat for us. Thank you. Like Esther in the Purim story, Jewish women, even when they had to hide who they were, have maintained and nurtured Jewish identity and brought it to shine in the new world. Your synagogue and your community are part of that ongoing story. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. Thank you. It was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Behind every strong woman, there is a very strong man. We are on page 586. Would you please rise for the Aleinu? I need you to open the ark, please. שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם כנגן, וגורם ככל המונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומעטים לפני מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
שהוא נוטה שמיים וסרט, ומושכות בשמיים ממעל.
ושכינתו לגובה מרומים, ואלוהינו אין אלוקינו אפס זולתו.
ככתוב בבראתו, וידעת היום והחשיבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, השמיים ממעל, והארץ
During the Kaddish. It's a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your loved ones lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. It's a human thing, love, a holy thing to love, what death has touched. And our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, life and death. And tonight we're remembering the first month of mourning for Caleb Stewart, and we observe the outside of the dear members of our families and members. Regina Abrams, Michael Bach, Louis Burrow, Herman Brownsberg, Margaret Cohen, Gladys Falek, Earl Flieger, Michael Malin, Eric Munoz, Sylvia Oberwager, Norman Orenstein, Julius Roberts, Harry Schwartz, Tilda Stern, and the outside of our Chai members and their families. Harvey Ammerman, Peter Azeb, Helen Barash, Mary Barov, George Black, Tilly Block, Clara Blumenfeld, Bertha Cohen, Herma Cohen, Sam Cohen, Percy Dolgan, Robert Fain, Samuel Feldman, Lawrence Fine, Avra Fishman, Harry Foneroff, Ad Frosch, David Gabelman, Beatrice Glazer, Hugo Golderberg, Geoffrey Golderberg, Sally Gordon, Francis Greenberg, Morris Inishovich, Rose Jaffe, Arthur Lancaster, Sadie Levine, Jack Lute, Rose Like, Melissa Neer, Blanche Peverman, Dr. Seymour Pollock, Rai Portner, Susan Prince, Milfred Relkin, Gail Ryder, Samuel Ryder, Estelle Ring, Beth Rosenblum, Dennis Rosenzweig, Solomon Rosenzweig, Beatrice Rubinstein, Ethel Rudman, Matilda Rudo, Shelley Sands, Anthony Siviano, Kitty Skilkraut, Alice Stein, Bernice Sherman, I. Sherman, Daniel Snitman, Janet Solomon, Rose Solomon, Melvin Stein, Paul Stein, Tilly Steinberg, Morris Wilk, Philip Zell, and if there are those who would like to mention their names. Thank you. Thank you. Any other names on Zoom? Always be for a blessing. We're on page 598. יתקדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. בעלמא דברך יוטה וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביום החון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהיה שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה, ברכו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. Please be seated, and just before we're going to conclude this very, very special service, as we're being blessed to have a congregation that children and parents and grandparents share same space at this beautiful sanctuary. And David, I'm sure that as a child of father and mother who are rabbis, which I'm sure that we can open a club, because I'm the child of a rabbi, my children are children of rabbis, and I don't know if, we will share only happy moments, right? But as we're blessed to have parents that are rabbis, I'm sure that we will all agree that it's a very, very special meaning to have parents at the sanctuary, and when parents and children lead service together. And I would like to offer traditional prayer and blessing for children that parents should give on Friday night. I believe that we are all children of our parents, and we're all children of God. Therefore, please join me. ישמחה אלוהים כי שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, ישמחה אלוהים כאפרים וכמנשה. May God inspire you to live like Ephraim and Menashe. May God inspire you to live like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוניו פניו אליך ויחונק, יישא אדוניו פניו אליך, וישים לכם shalom. May God bless you and keep you always. May God's light shine upon you, and may God be gracious to you always. May you feel God's presence with you always, and may we all find peace always. Amen. Shabbat shalom. And we are going to conclude with...
We are going to end with an Adon Olam that some of you may have heard the melody before. Adon Olam, the text is one of those texts that you can pretty much set any song to. So you can think of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, any song. You can, it's very, very metered. And this is a very beautiful one that I learned from listening to a recording on audio tape that my father sent me a month ago of my great aunt, Tia Adela, in Panama, singing this song. And I think when I mentioned it the other night, Dorothy and others seem to know the melody. So if you look on the back of the sheet that has the family tree, we will do the first verse in Hebrew, and then we will do the first English verse, and skip to the last English verse, and then end with the final Hebrew verse. And this is a traditional Sephardic melody for Adon Olam. אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו sing along. Lord over all, whose power the scepter swayed, if first creation's wondrous Rome was framed, when by his will divine all things were made, then King Almighty was his name proclaimed. Into his hands my spirit I consign, whilst wrapped in sleep that I again may wake, and with my soul, my body I resign. Then King Almighty, no fears my soul can shake. Beyado afkid ruchi, beit ishan ve'ayira, ve'im ruchi kevi'ati, Adonai li ve'lo iram. Adonai li ve'lo iram.
Shabbat shalom. Thank
Shabbat
you.
shalom.
And the last surprise for tonight. Oh, you don't know about the surprise? Oh, Dorothy. Oh, okay, Gilchrist knows. It's all Gilchrist's fault right now. After the surprise, we can go for an oneg. All this is an oneg. It's such a pleasure to listen.
Well, no. The surprise, well, I will say I was asked to sing Valiant Virgin Isles, an anthem that I wrote for the centennial of the transfer of our islands from Denmark to the United States. So I will help remember all the words.
Crown jewels of the Caribbean Sea, with love created for you and me. Grand majestic vistas, charming emerald sisters, none can equal their beauty. We celebrate our history, great men and women of dignity, firm determination, talent, inspiration, timeless is the legacy. Lift your voice in thanks and praise for Amanda's glorious days, pressing on through arduous trials.
That's an anthem right there. Holy moly.